The night Ethan Reed thought he owned the world was the same night everything he had ever taken for granted quietly slipped out of his hands. Manhattan glittered beneath him from the rooftop bar of the Ritz-Carlton, a place he visited whenever he needed to feel untouchable. The city lights shimmered across the glass railing, and in their reflection sat Brooke Sullivan, the woman he shouldn't have been holding, wrapped in a satin dress that clung to her like a second skin. His iPhone lay face down beside a half-empty glass of Macallan, vibrating with unread messages from a wife he had long stopped appreciating. Brooke laughed at something he said, loud, careless, hungry for the life she believed he could give her. Ethan smoothed a hand over the front of his tailored jacket, the faint scent of Dior cologne mixing with the cool night air. He felt invincible. He'd just closed a major deal. His promotion to COO was practically guaranteed, and Brooke's hand on his thigh only fed the fantasy that he was the kind of man who deserved more than the ordinary life he had at home. He didn't know Olivia Parker was no longer waiting in that life. By 3 a.m., after a private dinner on Fifth Avenue and whispered promises Brooke believed were real, Ethan finally slipped into the back seat of a black Mercedes. The city blurred past the window. Central Park, Columbus Circle, the long stretch of dark river, while Ethan rehearsed the usual apology he'd give Olivia. Something about a client emergency, maybe networking ran late. She always forgave him. She always stayed. But tonight, the house felt wrong the moment he stepped inside. Too quiet, too still, too clean. He tossed his keys onto the entry table and called out her name. No answer. A soft draft brushed his face as he walked deeper into the living room. The bookshelf looked thinner. The throw blanket she always kept on the couch was gone. His chest tightened, but he told himself she probably reorganized again. Olivia loved tidying when she was stressed. He turned into the kitchen and stopped moving altogether. On the marble island, beneath the warm glow of the pendant lamp, sat a small stack of papers and a single silver ring. His ring, the Tiffany band he had taken off earlier, now lay neatly beside the divorce papers she'd already signed. A USB drive rested on top, like a quiet period at the end of a long sentence. Ethan's throat went dry. He reached for the papers, hands trembling, heart pounding as he skimmed the page. Dates, screenshots, photos, evidence, every lie he thought he hid, every secret he believed she'd never uncover. Then he saw her handwriting on a small note. I won't scream. I won't beg. I'm done. A chill sliced down his spine. And that was when Ethan understood. Olivia hadn't left out of anger. She had left because she finally realized she deserved more than the man who had taken her for granted. And he was about to learn just how much he'd really lost. Before betrayal hollowed her out, before the nights of shaking hands and silent tears, Olivia Parker had been the kind of woman people described as steady. Not flashy, not loud, just steady. The daughter of a mechanic and a school librarian from Indiana, she grew up believing that love was something you built day by day, like a house weathering storms. At 33, she carried those values into the life she made with Ethan Reed. A small townhouse in New Jersey, a view of Manhattan's shimmering skyline from the bedroom window, and a hope that the future would be kinder than the past. Olivia had once been a senior marketing strategist in Midtown, known for her calm voice in chaotic meetings and her uncanny ability to read people. Her colleagues used to joke that she could spot a lie before it fully formed on someone's tongue. Ironically, that same gift failed her when she needed it most. She gave up her job 2 years before the night Ethan betrayed her. The decision wasn't forced, but it wasn't exactly free either. Ethan had just started his MBA, and they agreed she'd help cover tuition, manage the house, and start fertility treatments. An exhausting, emotional marathon she ran mostly alone. They told friends it was a mutual choice. In truth, it was a sacrifice Olivia made because she believed in their shared dream. She believed in him. Their home bore the marks of her quiet, hopeful touch. A small collection of paperback novels by the window. A ceramic mug she bought from a Brooklyn street vendor. A framed photo from their trip to Maine, Olivia, wind blowing her hair, Ethan kissing her temple. In that picture, she looked undeniably happy. And real happiness, she knew, was rare. Olivia's world revolved not around luxury, but around meaning. She used the same iPhone for 4 years, the same MacBook Air since college, Her favorite mornings were simple ones: coffee in a chip mug, watching the sun rise over the skyline, a moment of stillness before the day's demands swallowed her whole. But life had bruised her more than she ever admitted. The miscarriage was the wound she hid deepest. It happened quietly, on a rainy Thursday afternoon while Ethan was at a networking event in the city. She called him, voice trembling. He promised he would come home, but he didn't. Not until hours later. He apologized, blamed traffic, blamed timing, blamed anything but himself. And Olivia, exhausted and grieving, let it go. She always let it go. After that, she stopped talking about having children, stopped talking about her dreams, stopped talking about herself at all. Little by little, her life shrank to the size of Ethan's ambitions. She cooked his meals, she organized his schedules, she listened to his frustrations, his complaints, his ever-growing hunger for status and recognition. She made their home soft so he could go out and be sharp. She made herself small so his world could feel large. But she never expected that the man she built her life around would betray her so thoroughly. Still, traces of her old brilliance remained, just waiting for the moment she'd finally remember who she was. On nights when Ethan worked late, Olivia would sit alone at the kitchen table with scraps of paper, sketching ideas for mobile products she would never build, writing slogans she would never pitch. Ethan sometimes glanced at them and murmured, "You're so good at this, Liv." But the next morning, he'd go back to treating her like she was someone living on the sidelines of his greatness. She didn't know then that one of those sketches, drawn on a Starbucks napkin, would one day become the weapon that saved her. She didn't know she was stronger than the storm coming. And she didn't know that losing Ethan would become the beginning of a destiny she never imagined. The world Olivia Parker lived in wasn't glamorous, not the way Ethan liked to pretend it was. Their townhouse in New Jersey sat on a quiet street lined with maple trees, the kind of place where neighbors waved while walking their dogs and kids rode bikes until dusk. From the bedroom window, you could see the Manhattan skyline shimmering in the distance, a reminder of the life Ethan wanted, and the life Olivia thought they were building together. Every morning began the same way. Olivia would wake before sunrise, wrap herself in a soft gray cardigan, and pad into the kitchen, where the single under-cabinet light glowed like a night lamp. She'd grind fresh coffee beans, letting the familiar scent settle her nerves, and open the curtains just in time to watch the first light spill over the city. On the counter sat her old MacBook Air, always half-charged, always waiting for ideas she rarely allowed herself to finish. But across the river, Ethan moved in a different world. A world of glass towers, tailored suits, and power breakfasts at the Four Seasons. His office on the 42nd floor overlooked the financial district. A sleek standing desk, a Mont Blanc pen laid carefully beside his MacBook Pro, and a framed certificate from his MBA program hung proudly on the wall. Everything in that space made him feel like someone who belonged at the top, and everything at home made him feel trapped. Olivia didn't realize it at first. She was too busy managing fertility appointments, cleaning out the guest room to convert into a nursery they might never need, and clipping coupons to keep their finances afloat after pouring most of her savings into Ethan's degree. Meanwhile, Ethan spent his days surrounded by people who fed his ego. Executives who praised his strategic mind, young consultants who admired his confidence, and colleagues who joked that he was 5 years away from running the whole company. It was in those boardrooms and rooftop lounges that Ethan began to drift toward the version of himself he liked better. One untethered by responsibility, routine, or the quiet steadiness of the wife waiting at home. The cracks in their marriage weren't sudden. They appeared slowly, like hairline fractures in glass. First came the late nights. Ethan claimed he needed to stay ahead of the curve, that those who wanted promotions had to work twice as hard. Olivia believed him. She packed him dinners in glass containers, texted reminders to take breaks, and told herself this sacrifice would pay off. Then came the missed appointments. He skipped fertility consultations, rescheduled doctor visits, and ignored the folder she created with treatment options. He always had a reason. Meetings ran long, clients needed him, a senior partner called at the last minute. But the worst part wasn't the excuses. It was how small she felt each time he made her feel dramatic for wanting him there. Their home, once warm and filled with conversation, grew quieter. Olivia found herself sitting alone more often, at the dinner table, on the couch, in the car outside the pharmacy. She tried to keep herself busy, reorganizing the pantry, cleaning the baseboards, anything to fill the empty spaces Ethan left behind. Sometimes she'd drive into Manhattan to surprise him with lunch, only to be told by a receptionist that he was out with clients. She'd wander the streets afterward, hands wrapped around a Starbucks cup, trying not to cry as she passed couples holding hands on Fifth Avenue. She kept the truth locked away. Their marriage wasn't crumbling because life was hard. It was crumbling because Ethan was already living in a different world. A world where Olivia no longer fit. And soon she would discover just how far that world had already pulled him away. Ethan Reed didn't wake up one morning and decide to betray his wife. His fall was slower than that. Quiet, gradual, built from choices he justified one excuse at a time. The first time he met Brooke Sullivan, he wasn't looking for an affair. He was looking for validation. The kind Olivia no longer gave him because she was too busy holding their life together. It happened during a quarterly strategy retreat in Midtown, held on the 35th floor of a glass-walled conference center. Executives in tailored suits tapped away on MacBook Pros, sipping catered lattes while screens flashed with stock tickers and projections. Ethan thrived in this environment. Here, he wasn't a husband with responsibilities, he was a rising star. A man people listened to, a man people stood up straighter for. Brooke entered that world like a spark to dry leaves. She was 27, ambitious, with sharp green eyes that scanned a room the way a hunter tracks movement. Fresh out of a consulting firm in Dallas, she had fought her way up, and she wasn't shy about wanting more. When she spoke during her first breakout session, calling out a flawed projection with data to back it up, the entire room turned. Even Ethan. She noticed. Later at the coffee bar, she approached him first. "You're Ethan Reed, right? VP of Strategy?" The flattery was subtle but perfectly timed. Ethan, exhausted from the strain of impressing the senior partners, soaked it up. Brooke complimented his insights. She laughed at his jokes. She asked questions as if his opinion mattered more than anyone else's in the building. With Olivia, conversations had become practical. Bills, doctor visits, grocery lists. Brooke made Ethan feel interesting again, young again, wanted again. He mistook that feeling for connection. What started as professional respect became flirtation. Late-night messages about work turned into personal confessions. Ethan told himself it wasn't cheating since nothing physical happened, but emotionally the line was already crossed. Meanwhile, Brooke was studying him. She saw the expensive watch, the confidence, the early promotion track. She saw a man whose orbit could lift her higher than she could climb on her own. She knew his weaknesses, his pride, his hunger, his need to be admired. She fed them gently, like hand-feeding a lion. Her friends warned her, "Don't get involved with executives," one said. "They'll use you." But Brooke wasn't naive. She thought she was using Ethan too. A mutual transaction, a shortcut in a world where shortcuts were rarely offered to girls like her. The first time Ethan and Brooke crossed the line was during a company happy hour. A dim bar in the financial district, warm lights reflecting off glass tables. People left one by one until only a few remained. Brooke sat beside him, closer than necessary, her perfume, jasmine and something darker, wrapping around his senses. She told him she admired how hard he worked, how brilliant he was, how successful he'd become. Olivia had once said those things too, but that was years ago. Their first kiss wasn't romantic, it was reckless. Stolen in the back hallway near the restrooms, too fast, too desperate. Ethan pulled away first, guilt flashing in his eyes. But Brooke only smiled, brushing her thumb along his jaw. "No one has to know," she whispered. And Ethan believed her. From that night forward, he lived two lives. The respectable husband who came home late, and the man who slipped into luxury hotels with a woman who made him feel like the center of the universe. He told himself Olivia was fragile, too emotional, too consumed by the miscarriage to understand him. He convinced himself he deserved this, that this affair was temporary, that he could control everything. But he didn't see the truth. Brooke wasn't just a mistake. She was the first domino, and once it fell, his entire world would go with it. The moment Olivia Parker realized something was truly wrong, didn't come with fireworks or shouting. It came on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. The kind of day where the sky looked tired and the air tasted like rain. She was folding laundry in the bedroom, the soft hum of the dryer filling the silence, when she noticed a small smear of lipstick on the inside collar of one of Ethan's shirts. A shade of deep rose. A color she had never worn a day in her life. Her heart paused, but her hands didn't. She kept folding, smoothing the fabric the way she used to smooth her worries. When Ethan got home that night, she asked gently, "Whose lipstick is this?" He didn't even blink. "Client hugged me goodbye. She was drunk. Relax, Liv." The lie slid off his tongue with a practiced ease that made her stomach twist. She didn't argue. She simply nodded and went back to stirring the pasta on the stove. But something inside her shifted. Something small, something dangerous. A quiet awareness that she was no longer living with the man she married. She was living with someone who had learned how to lie without flinching. Over the next few weeks, the signs multiplied like shadows at dusk. Ethan changed passwords he used to share. He took showers the moment he got home. He guarded his iPhone like it held nuclear codes. He bought new cologne without telling her. Something stronger, unfamiliar. Still, Olivia said nothing. She wasn't ready to confront him without proof. Not after everything she had invested, the years, the savings, the dreams she buried so he could chase his. She needed the truth, not suspicion. And the truth came in a way she never expected. It happened at a corporate charity reception downtown. Olivia hadn't planned to go, but Ethan insisted. "It'll look bad if I show up alone," he said, already buttoning his cufflinks. "Try to look polished, okay?" Polished, as if she were a floor he needed to shine. Olivia wore a simple navy dress and curled her hair, hoping it would be enough. When they arrived at the hotel ballroom, a golden space filled with chandeliers and executives holding champagne, she immediately felt out of place. Ethan walked ahead of her, barely glancing back, already slipping into the version of himself that thrived under expensive lighting. She stood near a table of hors d'oeuvres, trying not to touch her fingers to her stomach, a nervous habit she'd developed after the miscarriage. People drifted around her, murmuring about market trends and partnerships she didn't understand. Then she heard it, a whisper behind her. "That's Ethan's wife?" "No way. I thought Brooke was his girlfriend. He brings Brooke everywhere. Poor woman probably has no idea." The words hit her like stones. Her hands trembled around her glass, the stem digging into her palm. She didn't turn around. She didn't breathe. She simply stared straight ahead, watching Ethan laugh with a circle of coworkers, laughing the way he used to laugh with her. In that moment, the world blurred around the edges. The room felt too warm, too loud, too bright. She set her glass down before she could drop it, then slipped out onto the balcony where cold air slapped her cheeks. She leaned against the railing, eyes burning as she tried to steady her breath. The truth she had been trying to avoid was no longer hiding. It was out in the open, whispered by strangers. Her marriage wasn't just breaking, it was being publicly humiliated. A few minutes later, Ethan found her outside. "You okay?" he asked, annoyed rather than concerned. Olivia wiped her eyes quickly. "Who's Brooke?" Ethan froze. Just for a second, just long enough for her to see the truth flicker behind his eyes before he slammed the mask back into place. "No one," he said too quickly. "Don't start." And just like that, Olivia knew she wasn't losing him. She had already lost him. For weeks after the charity reception, Olivia moved through her days like someone walking underwater, every sound muffled, every motion heavy, every breath a little too hard to take. She wasn't angry yet. She wasn't ready for that. Mostly, she felt hollow. A quiet kind of sadness that settled in her bones and made everything, even small things like brushing her hair or unloading groceries, feel like climbing a hill she didn't remember choosing. She tried to convince herself she could fix things. That maybe Ethan was just overwhelmed, stressed, pulled in too many directions. She wanted to believe the man she married still lived somewhere inside him. But each attempt at connection only widened the distance between them. One night, she cooked his favorite dish, lemon rosemary chicken, the one they used to make together on Sundays. She lit candles. She set out their good plates. She even put on a blouse he once said he loved. Ethan came home 2 hours late, smelling like a bar she'd never been to, muttering something about client drinks. He barely glanced at the table before saying, "I already ate," and heading straight for the shower. Olivia sat alone at the table for nearly an hour, staring at the untouched food until the candles burned low and the wax pooled like tears. It wasn't just the neglect, it was the erasure. Every day, Ethan erased another part of her, her efforts, her presence, her worth, until she wasn't sure what remained. The real breaking point came quietly. It was a Friday night. Rain hammered against the windows. Olivia waited up for Ethan, tracking storms on the weather app, imagining him stuck in traffic or caught in the downpour. When he finally walked in, soaked and irritated, she rushed to get him a towel. Instead of gratitude, he snapped. "Don't smother me, Liv. I already have enough going on." Her hands froze. She wasn't smothering him. She was trying to love him. Later, while Ethan slept heavily beside her, Olivia lay awake staring at the ceiling. His arm lay across his chest, not touching her. There was a time when he slept curled against her, their legs tangled, breathing in sync. She remembered those mornings, the comfort, the warmth, the soft murmur of "good morning, baby" against her cheek. Now she felt like a stranger in her own bed. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. Every insecurity clawed its way to the surface. Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I changed too much. Maybe he really did outgrow me. Maybe this is my fault. Grief wrapped around her so tightly she could hardly breathe. She slipped out of bed and walked to the bathroom, closing the door quietly so she wouldn't wake him. Under the harsh, buzzing light, she looked at herself in the mirror. Puffy eyes, hair twisted messily into a bun, shoulders slumped. A woman dimmed down to survival mode. She didn't recognize herself. Then the dam finally broke. Sobs tore out of her so violently she had to cover her mouth with both hands. She slid to the cold tile floor, pressing her forehead to her knees as tears soaked through her pajamas. Every hurt she'd swallowed came pouring out. The miscarriage, the loneliness, the whispers at the gala, the lipstick on his collar, the texts he hid, the love she gave without ever getting back. She cried until her chest ached, until her head throbbed, until she had nothing left. When the storm inside her finally quieted, Olivia felt frighteningly empty. A numbness washed over her, the kind that makes people do desperate, irreversible things. She stood, shaky but determined, turned off the light, and walked to the bedroom doorway. Ethan slept soundly, unbothered, unaffected, unaware he'd just broken the woman who once would have walked through fire for him. Olivia watched him for a long moment, tears drying on her cheeks. Her heart hurt, but something inside her shifted. Barely, quietly, but enough. It was the first tiny crack of awakening. He didn't know it yet, but she was taking her first step away from him. The morning after her breakdown, Olivia Parker woke with a pounding headache and eyes so swollen it felt painful to blink. She sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the faint line of sunlight slipping through the curtains. Ethan had already left for work. He always left early on Fridays, claiming he needed quiet time in the office to prepare for executive meetings. He hadn't noticed she'd cried herself empty on the bathroom floor. Or maybe he had. Maybe he just didn't care. Olivia showered slowly, letting the hot water ground her. She didn't have a plan, not yet. But she knew she couldn't survive another night like the one before. She wrapped a towel around herself, walked into the kitchen, and made coffee with trembling hands. Her reflection glimmered faintly in the microwave door, pale, tired, but still standing. Then something unexpected happened. Her phone buzzed with a notification from an old Gmail account she rarely used anymore, an inbox she had almost forgotten existed. She frowned, tapped the screen, and froze. It was an automated reminder from a cloud archive service. Your saved file from 5 years ago has been restored. Attached was a preview thumbnail. A crumpled Starbucks napkin with a mobile app flow drawn in black ink. Her handwriting, her arrows, her annotations. Olivia's heart lurched. She remembered that night. Ethan pacing around their tiny apartment, complaining that his team couldn't figure out an onboarding issue. She had grabbed a pen and sketched a simple, intuitive pathway. Ethan took a photo, kissed her forehead, and said, "You're a genius, Liv." Seriously. He never mentioned that sketch again. Not when he pitched a new product direction at work. Not when he won Employee of the Quarter. Not when he described the app's growth as the result of my leadership. And definitely not when he started staying out late with Brooke. Olivia clicked the archived image. It opened in full resolution, time-stamped, synced, and authenticated. She scrolled down and saw the message she had once emailed to herself. Just in case Ethan forgets, this was my idea. Her throat tightened. Her past self had protected her future without even knowing she would need saving. She stared at the napkin sketch as if it were a lifeline, because in a way it was. Proof. Real proof. Proof of intellectual contribution. Proof that the man she loved had taken more than loyalty. He had taken credit, opportunity, recognition. He had stolen her brilliance, and something inside her snapped. Not in despair, but in clarity. Olivia stood up straighter. Her pulse steadied. The fog in her mind began to lift, replaced by a sharpness she hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about theft. About dignity. About reclaiming everything she had given up so willingly. She changed clothes, grabbed her tote bag, and walked out the door with her laptop tucked under her arm. She didn't know exactly where she was going until she found herself standing outside a glass building on Park Avenue. A law firm. The same one she had bookmarked late one night while crying quietly in the living room. Inside the marble lobby, she felt small, like a woman who didn't belong among polished floors and leather chairs. But she forced herself forward, checking in at the front desk. Minutes later, Olivia sat across from a divorce attorney with kind eyes and a voice that somehow softened everything without weakening it. "I don't know what to do," Olivia whispered. "Let's start with what you have," the attorney replied gently. "Show me." Olivia opened her laptop and placed the napkin sketch between them like a confession. The attorney's eyebrows lifted almost immediately. "This," she said slowly, "is more powerful than you realize." For the first time, Olivia felt a flicker of something other than pain. She felt possibility. She felt the ground shifting beneath her feet, not collapsing, but opening. And somewhere deep inside, a voice she hadn't listened to in years finally spoke. "He took from you. Now take your life back." Olivia stepped out of the Park Avenue law office, feeling like someone had rearranged the ground beneath her feet. Not in a frightening way, but in a way that made her see the city differently. The taxis, the steam rising from subway grates, the towering glass buildings, they all looked sharper, louder, more real. She wasn't the same woman who had walked in trembling 20 minutes earlier. She had a plan now, or at least the beginning of one. Her attorney had given her a list of documents to gather: bank statements, Ethan's compensation packages, email exchanges, anything related to the app idea. "Knowledge," the attorney had said gently, "is leverage." Olivia walked toward the corner Starbucks, repeating the phrase like a mantra. Leverage. She ordered a black coffee and sat by the window. Her mind buzzed, racing between anger and fear and something unfamiliar, something close to hope. She reached for her phone, intending to call Emma, but her screen lit up before she could dial. A text message from an unsaved number. "Liv? It's Noah. I saw you outside the building. Are you okay?" Her breath caught in her throat. Noah Carter. She hadn't seen him up close in years, just from the occasional LinkedIn update or news article about his fintech company. Back in college, he had been her closest friend. They studied together, shared late-night pizza, even almost kissed once. But life had pulled them in different directions. She chose Ethan, believing security was safer than uncertainty. Now, uncertainty felt like her only escape. She typed a quick reply, and 5 minutes later, Noah walked into the Starbucks. He looked older, more polished, dark gray suit, crisp white shirt, a Mont Blanc pen clipped neatly in his jacket pocket. Success suited him, but his smile hadn't changed. It was still warm, steady, sincere, he said softly, pulling out the chair across from her. "You look tired. What's going on?" For a moment, Olivia couldn't speak. The kindness in his voice cracked something inside her, and she had to blink hard to keep from crying. Noah waited quietly, folding his hands in that patient way she remembered. She inhaled and told him everything. Not dramatically, not bitterly, just honestly. The late nights, the lies, the lipstick, the whispers at the gala, the napkin sketch, the attorney, the evidence piling up like a storm she never asked for. When she finished, Noah sat back in his chair, silent for a moment. "Olivia," he finally said, voice low, "you should have called me sooner." She let out a weak laugh. "I didn't want to drag anyone into this." Drag me? Noah shook his head. You forget, I always wanted to be in your life. Her cheeks warmed. She looked away, gripping her coffee cup. She wasn't ready for anything beyond survival. But those words, they softened something she'd thought was gone forever. Before she could respond, Noah leaned forward. Liv? Your idea, the napkin sketch, it's good. Really good. And if Ethan's company is building on it, you're sitting on something powerful. She swallowed. So everyone keeps saying. But here's what they won't say, Noah continued. You don't have to fight for scraps of what's yours. You could build your own version. Better, clean, independent. Olivia blinked. Me? Start something? Why not? His smile was small but certain. You understand users better than half the people running teams today. You're intuitive, smart, and frankly, Ethan never deserved your mind. She laughed nervously. I'm not a CEO. You weren't a wife to a dishonest man either, Noah said gently, but you played the part until it broke you. You can learn to play a role that builds you. Olivia stared at him, at the city behind him, at the life she still had a chance to reclaim. A storm rumbled overhead, distant thunder shaking the windows. People rushed inside to escape the drizzle. Olivia felt the air shift, cooler, heavier, full of change. Noah reached into his briefcase and slid a business card toward her. Not his personal one. A different one. Come to my office this week, he said. Let me show you how we can turn what he stole into something that belongs entirely to you. Olivia held the card between her fingers. For the first time in months, she felt something steady inside her. A new beginning. A new ally. A new path. And she wasn't walking it alone. For most of her life, Olivia Parker had never been the kind of woman who reinvented herself. She didn't cut her hair after heartbreak, didn't buy new wardrobes after promotions, didn't drown her feelings in impulsive decisions. She survived by holding steady. But after the meeting with Noah, something inside her shifted. Not wildly, not recklessly, but with a quiet determination that felt foreign and powerful. It began subtly. The next morning, Olivia woke before the alarm, pulled her hair into a loose bun, and opened every window in the townhouse she still shared with Ethan. Letting cold autumn air rush in felt like letting something stale finally leave her chest. She stood in the doorway of the walk-in closet, scanning rows of clothes she hadn't worn in months. Most of them reflected the woman she'd become for Ethan. Soft sweaters, conservative blouses, muted colors, practical shoes. The clothes of someone who didn't want to take up space. But tucked in the back corner was a dress she'd bought years earlier. A fitted black sheath she never wore because Ethan once said it looked too bold for you, Liv. She took it off the hanger, touched the fabric, and felt her stomach flutter. She put it on. It fit perfectly. She stared at her reflection. The woman in the mirror didn't look fragile. She looked like someone who had survived something brutal, but hadn't been destroyed by it. She wasn't reborn yet. But she was waking up. That same afternoon, she booked a long-overdue appointment at a small salon in Brooklyn, the kind with warm lighting and stylists who talk to you like a sister rather than a client. When the stylist asked what she wanted, Olivia surprised herself. I want to look like someone who stopped apologizing for existing. The stylist paused, then nodded with understanding. Only women who've been broken recognize in each other. They trimmed her hair, shaped it, added soft layers that framed her face. Nothing dramatic, nothing scream for attention. Just enough to look like she remembered she was allowed to feel beautiful. After the salon, she walked into a boutique nearby. Not a luxury one, just a local shop with racks of clothes that felt alive. She bought 2 dresses, a blazer that made her shoulders look stronger, a pair of black heels that clicked confidently on the wood floor. She didn't buy the most expensive items. She didn't need to. She was building herself quietly, not performing for anyone. On the way home, she stopped by a bookstore. She didn't know why. She wandered through aisles until a title caught her eye. Women Who Run with the Wolves. She picked it up, flipping through pages filled with stories about reclaiming power, intuition, and identity. She bought it along with a journal and a black pen. At home, she wrote the first page. I don't know who I am without Ethan, but I want to find out. Later that night, Ethan came home early. Rare for him. He walked into the living room and froze when he saw her standing there in the black dress, hair soft around her shoulders, posture different, energy different. Wow, he said slowly, looking her up and down. What's the occasion? Olivia held his gaze without shrinking. Nothing. I just felt like getting ready for myself. Ethan frowned, confused. He wasn't used to a version of her he didn't control emotionally. Is this about the other night? I told you. People gossip. It didn't mean anything. Olivia didn't argue. She didn't explain. She didn't beg. She simply turned away, picked up her book, and walked past him. For the first time, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. Because no matter how many women he'd charmed, how many deals he'd closed, how many lies he'd told, he'd never seen Olivia look like someone preparing to leave the version of herself that served him. He didn't know it yet, but her rebirth had already begun. For days after Olivia's quiet transformation, Ethan Reed moved through their townhouse like a man walking into a room where the furniture had been rearranged. Nothing looked different at first glance, yet something felt undeniably off. Olivia didn't argue anymore. She didn't beg for explanations. She didn't ask where he'd been or why he hadn't come home until 2 a.m. She was polite, calm, unshakably composed, and nothing terrified Ethan more. On Tuesday evening, he burst through the front door carrying the smell of whiskey and rooftop bar perfume. He loosened his tie dramatically, clearly expecting Olivia to ask where he'd been. She didn't. She sat at the kitchen table with a mug of ginger tea, reading her book, pen tucked behind one ear. "You're up," he said, dropping his briefcase onto the counter. She replied without looking up. Ethan waited, silence stretched. "Long day," he added. Still nothing. He shifted, annoyed. "You're awfully quiet lately." She turned a page. "I've been busy." "Doing what?" he scoffed. "You don't." Olivia looked up sharply, and Ethan's words died on his tongue. There was something in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Not anger, but clarity. A clarity that made him suddenly aware he had miscalculated something very, very important. "I don't what?" she asked softly. Ethan opened and closed his mouth. He didn't know how to respond. Olivia stood, walked to the fridge, poured herself water, and walked past him again. Not avoiding him, just uninterested. It unsettled him so deeply that he followed her into the living room like a shadow. "Are you mad at me?" he demanded. "No," she said simply, settling on the couch. "Then why are you acting like this?" His voice sharpened. "Did someone put ideas in your head?" Olivia almost laughed. Ideas in her head? As if she didn't have her own mind, her own voice, her own agency. But she kept her calm because she knew what was coming mattered. "Ethan," she said, marking her page with a finger, "I need to ask you something." He exhaled dramatically, as if preparing for another emotional tantrum he could dismiss. "Okay. What?" She looked him straight in the eyes. "Who is Brooke Sullivan to you?" It was the quiet that made the question deadly. Ethan froze. Just a flicker, just long enough for her to catch it. Then he put on his best performance. "What? Brooke? She's just a new consultant. Why are you?" "Don't lie," Olivia said gently. He blinked, stunned by the softness in her tone. She wasn't yelling, wasn't crying, wasn't accusing. She was stating a fact. "Olivia, you're being paranoid," he snapped. "People talk, people exaggerate. Don't embarrass yourself by believing gossip." She closed her book slowly and set it on the coffee table. "Ethan," she said, "I saw the photos." A beat of silence. "What photos?" His voice cracked. Not with guilt, but with fear of being caught. "At the Beverly Hills Hotel," she clarified. "You were supposed to be on a business trip, and yet, there you were, with her." The color drained from his face. Olivia continued quietly. "You didn't even bother hiding it very well. It was public. People whispered about it at the gala. You humiliated me, Ethan, and you didn't even care enough to try to protect me." He opened his mouth, but Olivia held up a hand, and he stopped. "You don't need to explain," she said. "I already know the truth." Ethan swallowed hard. "Olivia, we can work through this. Couples recover from these things. You've been emotional lately. Maybe we both." She stood, cutting him off with a calm he couldn't comprehend. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't call me emotional. Don't twist this into something small. Don't pretend you didn't destroy what we built." Ethan stepped toward her. "Liv, I made mistakes, but I love you." "No," she said softly. "You loved the version of me that didn't ask you for anything." He froze. "And that version," she whispered, "doesn't exist anymore." Ethan's breath hitched as he realized something horrifying. For the first time in their marriage, Olivia wasn't pleading. She was preparing for something he never imagined she had the strength to do. and the dread in his chest told him he was already too late. The house felt strangely quiet the next morning, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something to happen. Olivia woke up before dawn, unable to shake the uneasy heaviness sitting in her chest. The confrontation from the night before kept replaying in her mind. Ethan's lies, his deflection, the moment he tried to call her emotional like it was a flaw. But the part that stayed with her most wasn't his deception. It was his fear. A small, trembling flicker she'd seen when she said the word photos. She pulled on a sweater and made her way downstairs. The sun was just beginning to seep through the blinds, dusting the kitchen with a soft gold glow. She poured herself coffee and sat at the table, scrolling through her phone, not to check messages from Ethan, but to open the hidden folder she'd created weeks earlier. Screenshots, email notifications, financial records, calendar overlaps, his lies preserved in digital amber. One by one, she reviewed the files, steadying her breath. This wasn't obsession anymore. It was evidence. Evidence she would need. Because today she had her second meeting with the Park Avenue attorney. By 8:30 a.m., Olivia was dressed, hair softly curled, blazer buttoned. She didn't look like a wife on the verge of breaking. She looked like a woman preparing for war. The law firm's marble lobby felt less intimidating this time. She sat across from her attorney, pushed up the folder across the desk, and calmly said on to proceed. The attorney smiled. Just a small one, but enough to say, "You're stronger than you think." They reviewed everything. Then the attorney asked, "Do you have proof the product flow was yours?" Olivia nodded, opening her laptop. She pulled up the old Gmail account, clicked the restored file, and turned the screen around. The napkin sketch, time-stamped from years ago, stared back at them. "That," the attorney said, tapping the screen, "is leverage enough to shake his entire company." Olivia inhaled, trying to process the magnitude of what she held. "You really think so?" "No," the attorney corrected. "I know so." They spent hours crafting a plan, document requests, formal letters, asset checks, and the initial drafts of divorce papers. The process was brutal but necessary. Olivia felt like she was shedding a skin she'd been trapped inside for years. Paper by paper, she reclaimed pieces of herself. After the meeting, she stepped outside into the crisp fall air. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She wasn't doubting. She felt awake. As she walked toward the subway entrance, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "You don't know me, but you need to hear this. Ethan's been bragging at work that you're losing it, and he has everything under control. I thought you should know." No name, no context. Just truth. Olivia stopped walking. The message didn't hurt her. Not anymore. It clarified something she had ignored for too long. Ethan wasn't scared because he regretted hurting her. He was scared because he was losing control of her. She tucked her phone away and continued down the steps into the subway, weaving through the crowd. The train screeched to a stop, and she stepped inside, gripping the metal pole as the doors closed. People around her scrolled their phones, listened to music, read newspapers. Nobody knew her story. Nobody knew her heart had been broken, stitched back together, and broken again. But they also didn't know she carried something powerful in her bag. Truth, documentation, proof. Proof of betrayal. Proof of theft. Proof of who Ethan really was behind the tailored suits and fake charm. He had underestimated her. Tonight, she would return home to a man who believed she was crumbling. But she wasn't. She was preparing. And soon, he would learn just how dangerous it was to underestimate a woman who had finally reached her breaking point and stepped past it. Because Olivia was no longer waiting to be saved. She was building the weapon that would set her free. The next week unfolded like a storm Olivia never saw coming. It started quietly. Too quietly. Ethan began acting strangely attentive, leaving post-it notes on the fridge that said things like, "Have a good day, Liv," and "Dinner tonight?" As if compliments could erase the months of lies between them. He came home earlier, brought flowers once, even offered to cook dinner. But Olivia knew better now. She saw the shift for what it was, fear disguised as affection. He sensed her pulling away. He sensed the ground changing. And when men like Ethan felt power slipping, they didn't apologize. They strategized. 2 nights later, as Olivia prepared documents in the bedroom, she noticed something alarming. One of her folders was missing, the one with the financial spreadsheets. She dug through drawers, sifted through the closet, checked her tote bag. Nothing. Her pulse spiked. She hurried downstairs. Ethan stood in the kitchen, holding the folder. "You looking for this?" he asked, voice syrupy smooth. Olivia froze. "Give it back." He smirked, waving the papers lightly. "You've been busy. Lawyers? Gmail archives? Asset inventories? Impressive, Liv, really." Her stomach dropped. He wasn't just angry, he was amused. "Ethan, that's private." "You're my wife," he snapped. "Nothing you have is private." The words sliced her like glass. She stepped forward. "Give them back." But Ethan shook his head with a look she had never seen on him before, something dark, calculating. "You think you can blindside me? Take half of everything I built?" "That you built?" Olivia whispered, stunned. "You wouldn't have your product without me." His jaw clenched. "A sketch on a napkin doesn't make you a genius. I'm the one who did the work. I made the connections. I put in the hours. You just helped." Helped. As if she hadn't poured years into him. As if her mind had no value. As if her sacrifices were background noise in his success story. Olivia felt her chest tighten, but she kept her voice even. "Ethan, give me the folder." Instead, he walked to the fireplace. She moved instantly, panic surging. "Ethan, don't you?" He tossed the entire folder into the flames. Olivia screamed, raw, broken. She lunged toward the hearth, trying to pull out the papers, but Ethan grabbed her arm, holding her back. "Stop," he shouted. "Olivia, for God's sake." "Let go of me," she cried, twisting free. But it was too late. The papers were burning, edges curling, numbers melting into ash. Her hours of work, her leverage, gone. She fell to her knees, staring helplessly as flames devoured the last sheet. Smoke stung her eyes, but it was nothing compared to the agony ripping through her chest. "You can't do this," she whispered. Ethan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "Liv, look, we're both stressed, but you don't need lawyers. You don't need whatever this is. Let's forget all this. We can start fresh." Fresh, as if he hadn't just destroyed the one thing she needed to stand against him. Olivia stood shakily, her breath trembling. "You burned my work." "It's our work," he corrected, tone icy. "And I'm protecting both of us." "By lying?" she shot back. "By cheating? By manipulating me until I barely recognize myself?" His face twisted. "You're being dramatic." The word hit her like a slap. Dramatic. The same word men use to silence women, to minimize their pain, to rewrite the truth. Olivia took a step back, tears blurring her vision. "I don't know who you are anymore." Ethan raised his chin. "I'm the man keeping this marriage from falling apart." "No," she whispered. "You're the reason it did." She grabbed her coat and keys with shaking hands. "Where are you going?" Ethan demanded. "Away from you." And she walked out the door barefoot, not even realizing until she reached the driveway. She collapsed against her car, body shaking, breath coming in ragged gasps. Her evidence was gone, her leverage destroyed, her hope slipping through her fingers. For the first time, Olivia felt something terrifying. Not that she would lose to Ethan, but that she might lose herself in the process. And that fear was almost enough to break her completely. Olivia sat inside her parked car, forehead against the steering wheel, tears dripping onto her hands. The cold air bit her skin, but she barely felt it. Her evidence, her leverage, was gone, burned in front of her eyes. Ethan had crossed a line she didn't even realize existed. Not just betrayal, not just manipulation, destruction. She didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes, maybe an hour. Eventually her phone buzzed. She ignored it at first, then it buzzed again and again. Finally, with trembling fingers she lifted it. 3 missed calls from Emma, 2 texts from Noah, and 1 number she didn't recognize. She opened Noah's message first. "Olivia, are you safe? Call me, please." She stared at the screen as another message popped up. "I'm not far. Say the word, I'll come get you." Her throat tightened. She typed a single word, "Yes." 15 minutes later, Noah pulled up beside her. He stepped out of the car, worry etched across his face, and knelt beside her door. "Liv," he said softly, "come here." The moment she felt his arms around her, every bit of strength she'd been holding onto gave out. She sobbed into his chest, messy, broken, grieving every piece of her life she'd convinced herself was worth saving. "It's gone," she choked out. "He burned everything. All the documents, all the spreadsheets, everything I worked on." Noah didn't flinch, didn't rush her. He let her cry until her sobs were quiet hiccups, then he gently lifted her chin. "Is that everything you had?" "Yes," she whispered. "He destroyed it. I have nothing. Noah's eyes softened. Live? Look at me. She did. You have more than you think. She shook her head. No, I don't. Yes, he said firmly. You do, because there's something you don't know yet. He stood and opened the passenger door. Come on. There's someone you need to talk to. Olivia didn't argue. She was too exhausted to protest. She got into his car, leaning her head against the cool window as the city lights blurred past. They drove to a quiet diner in Brooklyn, one that looked like it hadn't changed since the 80s. Inside, a woman sat alone in a corner booth, nervously stirring a cup of tea. Olivia froze. Brooke Sullivan, the mistress. Her heart slammed against her ribs. No, I'm not doing this. Olivia, Noah said gently. Just listen, please. Brooke stood quickly, eyes wide, guilt woven into every inch of her expression. Liv, Olivia, I'm not here to hurt you, I swear. Olivia's jaw clenched. You already did. Brooke nodded, tears burning in her eyes. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I need to tell you something you deserve to know. Olivia sat slowly, guarded, arms crossed. Noah sat beside her, an anchor she didn't realize she needed. Brooke took a shaky breath. Ethan, he's lying to you. And not just about the affair, about everything. Olivia stared at her. Be specific. Brooke looked down at her hands. He told people at work you were unstable, so no one would question him. He bragged about stealing your idea. He's planning to say you had nothing to do with it. Olivia froze. Brooke continued, voice trembling. And the worst part? He's hiding financial misconduct. He's been manipulating numbers, padding reports. People are starting to notice, but he's blaming you for everything. Olivia's blood ran cold. Noah leaned in. Brooke has something else. Something that changes everything. Slowly, Brooke pulled out her iPhone, opened her voice memos app, and pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the booth. Clear. Cold. Arrogant. Olivia's too emotional to ever prove anything. The idea was mine, and even if she talks, no one will believe her. I'll make sure she looks unstable. If she pushes me, I'll bury her. Olivia's breath caught. Her hands trembled violently. Brooke's voice broke. I recorded it the night he said it. I thought he'd protect me. I was wrong. And when he threatened to throw me under the bus too, I realized what he really is. Olivia's eyes filled, not with sorrow this time, but with something deeper. A rising fire. This was more than proof. This was the weapon Ethan never saw coming. For the first time, Olivia straightened her shoulders and met Brooke's eyes. Thank you, she said quietly. You just changed everything. And for the first time, the fight felt winnable. The night of the Tech Innovation Gala arrived with the kind of crisp Manhattan air that felt charged, like something electric was waiting to break loose. The event was held at the Plaza Hotel, its grand chandeliers glowing like constellations across the ballroom ceiling. Journalists, CEOs, investors, and rising stars of the fintech world drifted across marble floors in tailored suits and shimmering dresses. It was the kind of room where reputations were made and destroyed. Ethan Reed walked in feeling invincible. He wore a black tuxedo, freshly tailored, a Patek gleaming arrogantly on his wrist. Beside him stood Brooke, playing the part one last time, though her smile hid a truth Ethan had no idea she carried in her iPhone. As they entered, cameras flashed. Investors shook Ethan's hand. Board members clapped him on the back. This is our year, Ethan. You'll be COO by summer. That product demo next month, game changer. Ethan soaked it in like oxygen. He had no idea he was breathing his last moments of power. Meanwhile, outside the hotel, a black car pulled up quietly. Olivia stepped out, the hem of her fitted midnight blue gown catching the light. Her hair framed her face in soft waves, her posture steady. She looked nothing like the broken woman Ethan had dismissed just weeks earlier. Noah Carter stood beside her, offering his arm, not as a savior but as an equal. He wore a charcoal suit, understated yet unmistakably powerful. The moment they walked through the double doors, conversations dipped, heads turned. A ripple moved through the crowd. Is that Olivia Parker? With Noah Carter? I heard she's launching her own startup. Didn't she used to be married to? Oh my God, yes, this is going to get messy. Olivia kept her chin high, pulse steady. Every step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. Across the room, Brooke saw her first. Her breath hitched. She wasn't scared. She was relieved. Ethan followed Brooke's gaze and froze. The wine glass in his hand trembled. The confidence in his spine faltered. For the first time, he looked small. Olivia didn't halt when their eyes met. She didn't flinch. She simply walked past him, her hand resting on Noah's arm. The distance stung Ethan like fire. He forced a laugh. "Liv, what are you doing here?" Olivia stopped only long enough to give him a polite smile. Polite in the way ice is polite before it freezes a lake solid. "Living my life," she said softly. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You can't be with him. You don't belong in." But she was already gone, swallowed into a circle of investors and executives eager to speak with her. Noah introduced her as the founder of Parker Ledger, her startup, her vision, her brilliance. People asked questions. They listened when she spoke. They admired her, genuinely, not performatively. It was everything Ethan had stolen from her. And now she glowed with it. The turning point came during the keynote presentation. The giant screens lit up, displaying slides from several rising companies. Ethan stood ready, expecting his firm to be called for the upcoming product announcement. Instead, "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer said, "tonight we spotlight a revolutionary new fintech platform, democratizing security and financial access through user-centered design. Please welcome Parker Ledger." Olivia's logo filled the screen. The room erupted. Gasps, applause, whispers, cameras flashing like thunder. Ethan's face drained of color. Brooke stepped back from him, her expression unreadable. Noah led Olivia onto the stage. As she approached the podium, she felt a strange calm settle over her. Strength shaped by survival, clarity shaped by truth. She spoke with poise, confidence, intelligence. She didn't mention Ethan, didn't hint at betrayal. She didn't need to. Her success was her revenge. But fate wasn't done. As the applause faded, two men in dark suits approached Ethan quietly. One flashed a badge. "Mr. Reed? We need to discuss inconsistencies in your financial disclosures, privately." The color melted from Ethan's face. Brooke glanced at Olivia, giving the faintest nod. It had begun. And for the first time, Ethan felt the consequences of the world he had built on lies. The moment the two compliance officers approached Ethan, the entire atmosphere around him shifted, like a glass of champagne cracking in slow motion. Just minutes earlier, he had been the golden boy of the gala, shaking hands with billionaires, posing for photos, bragging about the visionary product he supposedly built. Now, whispers followed him like shadows as the officers guided him toward a quiet hallway. "Sir," one of them said grimly, "we have substantial concerns regarding altered financial reports connected to your department." Ethan tried to laugh it off. "This must be a misunderstanding. I'm the one who exposed irregularities." The officer raised a brow. "Our records show your login credentials were used to make the alterations." "Then someone hacked my—" "Mr. Reed," the other officer cut in, "we advise you to stop speaking without counsel." Ethan's mouth snapped shut, his heartbeat thundered in his ears. For the first time, true panic slid cold into his bloodstream. Meanwhile, back in the ballroom, Olivia watched from a distance. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't gloating. She simply observed, steady, composed, almost mournful. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth, justice, balance. Noah stepped beside her, voice low. "You okay?" "I thought I'd feel satisfied," she admitted. "But mostly, I just feel free." Her gaze drifted across the room, where Brooke stood alone, shoulders stiff, eyes distant. Even from here, Olivia could tell the woman was unraveling inside. Ethan had used her too, manipulated her, threatened her. But tonight, she broke the cycle. And Olivia respected that more than she ever expected. Inside the hallway, Ethan tried desperately to regain control. "Look, gentlemen, my wife is vindictive. She's been unstable for months. She's trying to sabotage my career. I can prove." The first officer clicked a pen. "Funny you say that, because someone sent us an anonymous audio file tonight." Ethan's blood turned to ice. The officer pressed play. His own voice filled the hallway. "Olivia's too emotional to ever prove anything. The idea was mine. If she pushes me, I'll bury her." Ethan lunged for the phone, but they stepped back effortlessly. "That," the officer said calmly, "sounds like someone engaging in manipulation and retaliation, not someone being sabotaged." Ethan felt the walls closing in. "This is taken out of context," he protested. "She's lying. The women in my life." The officer paused. "Women, plural?" Ethan froze again. He realized, too late, that he had just admitted to something they hadn't even asked about. The officers exchanged a look. "Mr. Reed, please come with us." They weren't arresting him, yet. but they were moving him to a discreet conference room to await formal questioning and arrival of legal counsel. Inside the ballroom, board members began murmuring. Executives frowned at their phones as notifications lit up with rumors. Investors exchanged tense glances. One of Ethan's closest allies muttered, "This doesn't look good." It was the beginning of a very public unraveling. Olivia didn't seek him out, didn't try to witness the humiliation. She simply stepped to a quieter corner, letting the noise wash over her as she exhaled a breath she felt she'd been holding for years. She thought about the night she found the lipstick on his shirt, the night she cried alone on the bathroom floor, the night he burned her documents, the years she spent shrinking herself to make him feel taller. And something inside her finally loosened. A weight lifted. Noah approached her again, handing her a glass of sparkling water. "It's done," he said softly. She nodded. "It's starting." He studied her face. "You handled tonight with more grace than most people would." Olivia smiled faintly. "Grace kept me alive when rage would have killed me." Silence settled between them, comfortable this time, not heavy. Across the ballroom, people tried pretending nothing was happening, but every whisper circled back to the same thing. Ethan Reed was caught. Exposed. Finished. And everyone knew it. Back in the hallway, one officer stepped out to make a call. Ethan sat alone at the conference room table, breathing hard, sweating through his collar, clutching the arms of his chair. He could hear distant applause from the ballroom, but none of it was for him. For the first time, Ethan Reed understood what it felt like to lose everything, and deserve it. The morning after the gala, Manhattan felt different to Olivia Parker. Quieter, clearer, as if the city itself had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. She woke up in Noah's guest room, sunlight stretching gently across the sheets. He had insisted she not return home that night, not after the emotional shock and the confrontation she endured. She agreed, not because she needed saving, but because she finally accepted she didn't have to suffer alone. For the first time in months, she slept without fear. Downstairs, the smell of fresh coffee drifted through the apartment. Noah sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through his iPad, the morning news glowing across the screen. When Olivia walked in, he looked up, and his expression softened. "You make the front page," he said gently. Her stomach tightened. "Is that good or bad?" "Both," he admitted, "but mostly good." He turned the iPad toward her. A headline in bold letters stretched across the top: "Ethan Reed under investigation for financial misconduct and intellectual theft." Source claims idea was taken from wife. Below it was a photo, Ethan looking shaken, escorted through a quiet hallway by compliance officers. Another photo showed Olivia at the gala, microphone in hand, looking confident and composed. A strange mixture of feelings surged inside her: disbelief, relief, grief, and something close to vindication. "They're interviewing employees," Noah said. "Several confirmed he bragged about taking credit for your work." Olivia exhaled slowly. "People finally believe me." Noah placed a warm hand over hers. "They always would have if you'd been allowed to speak." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed relentlessly. Messages flooded the screen. Emails from HR representatives, former colleagues, acquaintances she hadn't spoken to in years. But one message made her freeze. A voicemail from Ethan. She stared at it, dread creeping up her spine. "Do you want to hear it?" Noah asked cautiously. Olivia nodded. She pressed play. Ethan's voice spilled through the speaker, frantic, shaken, stripped of arrogance. "Liv, it's me. Please call me. I need to explain. There are things you don't understand. They twisted my words. Brooke lied. You're ruining my life. Please don't do this. We can fix it. Just, please." The message ended abruptly. No apology, no accountability, only desperation and blame. Olivia set the phone down, fingers trembling, not from fear but from clarity. "He still thinks he can manipulate me," she whispered. "Because he always has," Noah said quietly. She swallowed hard, then looked up. "Not anymore." Later that afternoon, Olivia gathered with her attorney, Noah, and a representative from an independent auditing firm. They reviewed everything: the napkin sketch, Brooks' recording, employee statements, financial inconsistencies. The evidence was overwhelming. "You have a strong case," her attorney said. "Not just for divorce, for intellectual property rights, for damages, for recognition." Olivia sat back, stunned. "I never wanted revenge." "You're not getting revenge," the attorney corrected. "You're getting justice." Noah added softly, and you're getting your life back. By early evening, news outlets released official statements confirming Ethan's temporary suspension pending investigation. Social media erupted. Executives denounced him, employees distanced themselves, and investors began withdrawing interest. Ethan's once promising career now dangled by a fraying thread of his own making. As the world reacted, Olivia found herself on Noah's balcony overlooking the city. The skyline glowed with purpose, sharp, bright, alive. She wrapped her arms around herself, not from cold, but from the overwhelming relief of finally being seen. Noah stepped beside her, handing her a warm mug of tea. "What are you thinking?" She hesitated, then spoke honestly. "I spent so long wondering if I was the problem, if I was unlovable, if I was crazy." Her voice softened. "But last night I remembered who I was before him, and I think I want her back." Noah smiled, gentle, patient. "She never left, Liv. She was just waiting for you." Olivia breathed in the night air, feeling it expand her lungs, her hope, her future. For the first time she didn't feel broken, she felt powerful. She felt true. She felt free. And the world was finally seeing the woman Ethan tried so hard to silence. Olivia returned to the townhouse 2 days later, not because she wanted to, but because her attorney said she needed to collect important documents and personal belongings before the divorce proceedings escalated. Noah insisted on driving her, refusing to let her walk back into that house alone. She didn't argue. Not this time. She was strong, yes, but even strong women shouldn't have to face the remnants of their trauma without support. When the car pulled into the driveway, Olivia felt an old ache rise in her chest. The house looked the same shutters, same porch light, same curtains she ironed on Sundays. But she wasn't the same woman who lived in it. Noah stepped out first, scanning the area gently without being overbearing. "I'll be right here if you need me." Olivia nodded, steadying her breath before unlocking the front door. The moment she stepped inside, she realized Ethan was home. His suitcase lay open in the hallway. Papers were strewn across the dining table. He looked like a man unraveling, hair messy, shirt wrinkled, eyes desperate. The confident executive from the gala had evaporated. "Olivia," he breathed, standing quickly. She said nothing. She walked past him, heading upstairs to the bedroom. Her suitcase lay where she left it weeks ago, half filled from the night she almost ran away with nothing but her grief. Ethan followed her. "Liv, please, just listen to me." She didn't stop packing. "I'm not here to talk." He ran a shaky hand through his hair. "You destroyed me." She froze, then turned slowly. "I destroyed you?" "You leaked that recording," he accused. "You humiliated me. You ruined my reputation." Olivia laughed, a sound without humor, without softness. "Ethan, you humiliated yourself. You burned my work. You lied. You cheated. You stole from me. That recording wasn't sabotage. It was the truth finally catching up." He stepped closer, voice cracking. "I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We were good together, Liv." "We were good when it benefited you," she said quietly. "When I dimmed myself. When I carried the weight of our life on my back so you could play hero everywhere else." "That's not fair. It's honest." Ethan's face twisted with fear, the kind that comes only when a man realizes his control has slipped beyond saving. "I don't want to lose you." "You already did," she said simply. She turned back to her suitcase, folding clothes, packing the last pieces of a life that never belonged to her as much as she convinced herself it did. Then Ethan said the one thing he should never have said. "You're nothing without me." The room went still. Olivia slowly zipped her suitcase, set it aside, and faced him fully. Her voice was calm, not cold, not cruel, but devastatingly clear. "I was nothing when I was with you," she said. "Now, I'm finally becoming someone." Ethan's face crumbled, panic turning into anger. "You think Noah cares about you? He's using you. Brooke used me. Everyone wants something." Olivia shook her head gently. "The only person who ever used anyone here is you." She walked past him toward the stairs. Ethan grabbed her arm, not forcefully but desperately. "Liv, don't walk out. We can rebuild." His voice cracked. "Please, I need you." Olivia looked down at his hand gripping her. For years, that hand directed her life, what she wore, how she spoke, how she existed. Now, it felt foreign, wrong. "Ethan," she whispered, "the only thing you need now is accountability." She pried his fingers off her arm and stepped away. His knees buckled slightly, as if the act of losing her had physically weakened him. "Goodbye," she said. He reached for her again. But Olivia was already walking down the stairs. The sunlight from the open door lit her path. Noah stood outside, watching her with quiet respect, not rushing her, not touching her, just being there. She walked out without looking back. The click of the door closing behind her sounded like the final page of a chapter she survived by sheer resilience. Noah opened the car door for her. "You okay?" Olivia exhaled, a long, trembling breath that emptied something dark and filled something new. "I think," she said softly, "I'm finally free." Noah smiled gently. "Then let's go build whatever comes next." As the car pulled away from the curb, Olivia looked at the house one last time. It grew smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror until it became nothing at all. For the first time, she chose herself, and she didn't regret it. The weeks following Olivia's final break from Ethan unfolded like slow sunrise, steady, warm, illuminating corners of her life she hadn't dared to look at in years. She moved into a small but beautiful apartment in Brooklyn Heights, a sunlit space with exposed brick, hardwood floors, and a balcony overlooking the East River. It wasn't luxurious, but it was hers. Every piece of furniture she chose with intention. Every plant she placed near the windows thrived. Every morning she brewed coffee without anxiety sitting in her throat. It was the first home she'd ever lived in that felt like freedom. Noah helped her move in, assembling shelves, carrying boxes, refusing to let her lift anything he considered too heavy for someone who's done enough heavy lifting in life already. But he never crossed a line. He never pushed, never hinted, never presumed. He simply showed up, patiently, quietly, consistently. One evening, while hanging a framed print above her desk, he said, "This place already feels like you." Olivia smiled softly. "I'm still figuring out what me looks like." "That's the best part," Noah replied. "You get to decide." And she did. Every day. Her attorney called with updates, Ethan's misconduct investigation expanding, multiple employees corroborating Brooks' recording, the board launching a forensic audit. Olivia listened without bitterness. Justice was working, slow but inexorable, and she didn't have to lift a finger. Her job was to build, and she was ready. Noah invited her to his office one morning, a glass-walled workspace on the 31st floor overlooking the skyline. He introduced her to his team, a diverse group of young innovators who looked at her not with pity, but with respect. He gave her a tour, ending in a smaller conference room. "This," he said, placing a folder on the table, "is for you." Inside were the early-stage documents for Parker Ledger. Financial projections, UX drafts, development partnerships, intellectual property protections. It was real, tangible, the blueprint of a future she never imagined she could claim. Olivia's hand trembled as she read through it. "This is big." "It's yours," Noah said simply. "I'll help however you want, as a mentor, a partner, or not at all. This is your vision." Tears pricked her eyes, but not from sadness, from gratitude so deep it felt like healing. She spent the next weeks designing, planning, refining. Her MacBook Air became her constant companion. Pages filled with ideas she once shoved aside. She met with developers, advisors, creatives. She rediscovered her voice in rooms filled with people who actually wanted to hear it. And slowly, Olivia transformed from a woman reclaiming what was stolen into a woman creating what she deserved. Meanwhile, the media shifted fully. Articles praised her innovation, her courage, her quiet dignity. Investors requested meetings. Women reached out sharing their own stories, stories of being overshadowed, silenced, dismissed. Olivia responded to as many as she could. Because she understood now, her story wasn't just hers. It was an echo of countless others. One afternoon, while reviewing prototypes, she received an unexpected email from Ethan's company's HR department. A formal apology, a written acknowledgement of her contribution to the early product concept, an official statement clearing her name of the lies Ethan spread. Her attorney followed up minutes later. "The board is offering you a financial settlement tied to your intellectual property." "It's generous, Olivia, very generous." She sat back in her chair, stunned. After months of torment, manipulation, and erasure, her name was being restored publicly. Not because Ethan wanted it, but because truth demanded it. Later that evening, Olivia stood on her balcony watching the sun melt behind the skyline. Lights flickered across the river, reflections dancing like small pieces of gold. Noah joined her quietly, handing her a warm cup of tea. "You did this," he said softly. She shook her head. "No, I survived it, and now I'm rebuilding." He smiled, "and doing damn well." Olivia leaned against the railing, letting the breeze brush against her skin. For the first time in years, she felt whole. Not waiting, not hoping, not breaking. Becoming. And the world was finally rising with her. The day Ethan Reed's world officially collapsed did not arrive with sirens or cuffs. It arrived quietly, like a blade slipped between ribs when he least expected it. Olivia wasn't present for any of it, but the pieces of the story reached her slowly, carried by news alerts, messages from former colleagues, and a brief call from her attorney. It began on a Wednesday morning. Ethan arrived at his office building wearing a wrinkled suit, dark circles bruising the skin under his eyes. He barely slept anymore. His voicemail was full of ignored calls from attorneys, board members, and worried family. His reflection in the elevator doors looked like a ghost, pale, shaky, stripped of confidence. As he stepped onto the 42nd floor, silence greeted him. No greetings, no smiles, no nods of respect. People avoided eye contact, whispering behind conference room glass. He walked to his office and found 2 security guards standing inside. "Mr. Reed," one said, "we need your badge." Ethan blinked. "What? Why?" "It's not negotiable." His hands trembled. He slowly removed the ID lanyard he wore like a badge of honor for years. The guard took it, slipping it into a small envelope. Then Ethan noticed the envelope on his desk. His termination letter. Effective immediately. Cause: financial misconduct, tampered corporate records, unethical behavior, intellectual property theft, breach of fiduciary duty. The room spun. "No," he whispered, clutching the edge of the desk. "You can't fire me. I built this department. I built this product." A senior board member stepped into the doorway, arms crossed. "The product you built is under federal review. The idea you stole belonged to your wife. The manipulation you used is documented. You embarrassed this company, and now you're done." "I can explain." "There's nothing to explain." "And Olivia, she lied." The board member's expression hardened. "She didn't lie. We've seen the evidence. All of it." Ethan felt his knees give. He collapsed into his chair, head in his hands. His empire, his image, his carefully curated life had turned to ash. "Security will escort you out," the board member finished coldly. "And Ethan, don't contact her again." As the guards led him through the office, employees stepped aside. Some whispered. Some watched in silence. Some smirked. It was the slow, humiliating walk of a man who once believed he was untouchable. Outside the building, reporters swarmed. "Mr. Reed, is it true your wife created the original concept? Did you alter financial documents? Are you facing criminal charges? Do you regret burning her work?" Burning her work. The words hit him like a slap. He shoved past the cameras, hands over his face, and stumbled down the street. Sirens echoed somewhere in the distance. A gust of cold wind hit his cheeks. He looked disoriented, like a man waking from a nightmare, only to realize it was real. Meanwhile, Olivia was across the river in Brooklyn Heights, sitting in a quiet cafe, reviewing design notes with her development team. She didn't know what was happening at that exact moment. She didn't need to. Her life no longer revolved around Ethan's choices. But at 1:34 p.m., her phone vibrated with a news alert. She hesitated before tapping it. The headline read, "Ethan Reed terminated from flagship fintech firm, investigation expands." A picture accompanied it. Ethan, disheveled, being escorted through a crowd of reporters. No arrogance, no charm, no weaponized confidence, just consequence. Olivia stared at the screen for a long moment, not smiling, not celebrating, simply breathing. Justice wasn't loud, justice wasn't cruel, it was balanced. A soft exhale that finally released the weight on her chest. Noah slid into the seat across from her, noticing the shift in her expression. "You okay?" She turned the phone toward him. He read the headline. "Ah, it happened." Olivia nodded slowly. "Yes, it did." "Do you feel better?" he asked. She thought about it, truly thought. "I feel complete," she whispered finally. "Not because he fell, but because I'm not under him anymore." Noah smiled gently. "That's what healing feels like." Olivia looked out the window, the city alive and vast around her. For the first time, Ethan's downfall wasn't her story. Her rise was. She closed the notification, tucked her phone away, and returned to her work. Because justice had already done its job, and now nothing stood between her and the life she was meant to build. Winter settled slowly over Brooklyn, dusting rooftops with a thin veil of white, softening the noise of the city the way healing softens old wounds. Olivia Parker stood on her balcony one early morning, wrapped in a thick robe, watching the sun climb over the East River. The air was cold enough to sting her cheeks, but she didn't mind. She loved how quiet the world felt at dawn, how peaceful. She breathed out, and the air puffed into a small cloud. Her life looked nothing like it had a few months ago, and yet, for the first time, it finally felt like hers. Inside, her apartment was warm, filled with the soft smell of cinnamon from a candle she lit the night before. The space looked lived in and personal. Plants thriving by the window, books scattered on a coffee table, design sketches pinned to a corkboard with purpose and pride. Her MacBook sat open on her desk, displaying the latest prototype of Parker Ledger, her company, her vision, her legacy. The project had grown faster than she expected. After the gala, investors began reaching out, impressed not by her past, but by her potential. A development firm partnered with her. A women-led venture group offered support. College classmates she hadn't spoken to in years reconnected, cheering her on. Every meeting, every pitch, every late-night brainstorming session reminded her she hadn't been erased. She'd been underestimated, and she had risen. That morning, Noah knocked gently on her door. He carried 2 Starbucks cups. Hers always came without asking. A grande latte with cinnamon powder, no whip. She opened the door, smiling warmly. "You're up early," he said. "I like the quiet," she answered, letting him in. Noah set the drinks on the counter and took in the apartment with a soft smile. "It feels like a home now." "It is," she said simply. He hesitated, leaning against the island. "Your attorney called me last night. She said the settlement is finalized." Olivia nodded. "It is." The intellectual property dispute had been closed in her favor. The damages awarded were significant, far more than she expected. But it wasn't the money that mattered. It was the acknowledgement, her idea, her work. Her name, restored publicly, permanently. A quiet victory, but powerful. Noah watched her carefully. "How do you feel about it?" Olivia wrapped her hands around her warm latte. "Lighter," she said, "like I finally put down a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying." "And Ethan?" he asked gently. She exhaled. "I don't hate him. I don't wish him more pain. He did that to himself." She took a sip, eyes softening. "I just hope one day he learns something from all this." Noah nodded slowly. "You're a good person, Liv." "I'm a stronger person," she corrected. "There's a difference." Silence settled comfortably between them. Outside, snow continued drifting past the windows. The world felt clean, renewed. After a moment, Noah spoke again. "There's something I've wanted to say for a long time." Olivia looked up, heart fluttering gently. Not in fear this time, but in anticipation. He stepped closer, voice steady. "I'm proud of you. Not because of what happened to Ethan. Not because of Parker Ledger. But because you didn't let what broke you define you." Olivia felt warmth bloom in her chest. "Noah," she whispered. "You don't owe me an answer," he said quickly, hands slipping into his pockets. "I'm here because I want to be, as long as you want that too." She moved closer, slowly, deliberately, until she stood only inches away. Her voice was soft, but certain. "I do want you here." His breath caught. "But not to save me," she added, "just to stay." Noah smiled, a quiet, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. "Then I'll stay." They stood together by the balcony doors, watching the world shift from gray to gold as the sun rose higher. Olivia leaned her head gently onto his shoulder, letting the warmth of the moment settle into her bones. She wasn't rushing toward something new, she wasn't escaping something old, she was simply choosing her life again. And for the first time, she chose joy, chosen love, not blind, not desperate, but healthy and whole, chosen possibility, chosen self. Olivia Parker had lost everything once, but she rebuilt, she rose, she loved again, and this time the ending wasn't survival, it was peace, it was freedom, it was finally, beautifully, hers. And just like that, our story comes to an end. But you, yes, you, are still here. If you've stayed until this moment, it means something in Olivia's journey touched a part of your own heart. Maybe her courage reminded you of your own. Maybe her healing mirrored something you're quietly trying to rebuild. Her story teaches us a simple truth. When someone stops seeing your worth, it doesn't mean you've lost it. It means they never understood it. Like the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Olivia changed her thoughts, and her life changed with them. She chose dignity over pain, truth over fear, and renewal over bitterness. That's something any of us can choose, no matter where we stand today. Life doesn't always give us the apology we deserve, but it does give us the chance to rewrite our own ending, one honest decision at a time. If this journey made you feel stronger, seen, or even a little braver, then don't leave quietly. Hit like, so we know you felt something. Share this video so someone else finds strength too. And subscribe, because we're building a community where stories heal and where you matter. You're not alone. You never were.